for one more update today on another deadly shooting. This one in Deland. It happened at the McCabe's bar on Saturday after investigators say a fist fight broke out. Victim ended up being shot 6 times and dying. 32-year-old Keshad Harris of Deland. We know the bartender was also shot while trying to break up the fight. The suspect at the last update had not been found. We do expect an update from Deland Police coming up at 4 o'clock. So if you're watching us on Fox Local Orlando, we will have that for you when that begins on Fox 35 News Plus. But we appreciate you joining us this afternoon. It is a beautiful day across the state of Florida. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you back here at 2 p.m.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Good afternoon to you and welcome into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon live on Fox Local, fox35orlando.com, and also on YouTube. I'm Garrett Wymer and we appreciate you joining us today. It is 4 o'clock and that means it's time for today's Top 4 at 4, where we break down 4 of the big stories that we're tracking in the Fox 35 newsroom this afternoon. And joining us for today's Top 4 at 4, Fox 35 News anchor and reporter Marlisa Goldsmith. And Marlisa, we appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, happy to be here with you, Garrett.
So our first story, we are standing by for some new details right now on an update on this deadly shooting over the weekend in Deland.
Yeah, this happened right in the middle of their downtown area. There was a shooting early Saturday morning at McCabe's bar in Deland, killing one person and leaving another injured. The person who was killed has been identified since this happened as 32-year-old Keshad Harris. Officials there said that the suspect in the shooting ran away from the scene and has not yet been found. So how'd this start? Well, according to Deland Police Captain Currence Dice, one group came in first and the second group came in. Moments later, they all met at a table. They were talking, and then there appears to be some sort of disagreement, and then a fight broke out. Well, officials said there were about 30 to 40 other people who were at the bar at the time of this happening, and police said the victim was shot 6 times in the chest. And officials also said that there was a bartender who was trying their best to break up the altercation, but was also caught in the crossfire there and sustained gunshot wounds to both of their hands. The bartender was trying to intervene, and, Dice said that she was doing her best to do a good deed, and she ended up the one being shot. There is a photo right there of her. Witnesses did tell investigators that fight broke out between several men who were inside there, escalating when one person pulled out a .40 caliber gun and then opened fire. So a very unfortunate situation. I know that we covered this over the weekend, and the reporter who was following the story spoke with, people in the area saying that this is just out of character. This doesn't typically happen there, and they enjoy being able to go out and not have to deal with things like this. So just a sad story all around.
Yeah, we are still waiting on some more details. Here's a live look inside the city of Deland. Police Department, where we expect them to announce in any minute now an arrest in this case. And this is breaking news here on Fox 35 News Plus. According to Fox 35's Marie Ettinger, who is covering this news conference that we expect to begin any second now. She was just given some information about a suspect in this, Avante Williams, 24 years old, now charged with second-degree murder. Let's go ahead and listen in as this news conference gets underway.
The Deland Police Department. To my left, your right, is Captain Pruance Dice, who commands our Criminal Investigation Division. To my right is Deputy Chief Adam Kistart, second in command of the Police Department. I want to provide an update from the shooting that resulted in the death of Mr. Keshad Harris, a resident of Deland. The shooting also injured a bartender on the night of the incident, and this occurred at McCabe's Bar, located at 227 North Amelia Avenue in Deland on Saturday early morning, between 1:30 and 2 in the morning. Since the incident, our Criminal Investigation Division has gathered evidence, developed investigative leads, and determined the identity of the individual that shot Mr. Harris. Since that time, they were able to obtain a warrant for the arrest of one Avante Travion Williams, age 24, of Deland. Mr. Williams was arrested today without incident by members of the Deland Police Department downtown. This is an open, active investigation at this time, and detectives still continue to collect evidence, conduct interviews with people concerning the facts and circumstances surrounding this incident. There were approximately 40 people inside McCabe's Bar when this shooting took place, and some of those people may have additional information that could help us in this case, and we urge them to reach out to us. We have received many tips from the community, which we're very grateful, and we hope that that continues. I also want to take the time to acknowledge the invaluable help that the New Smyrna Beach Police Department, the Flagler County Sheriff's Office, the Volusia County Sheriff's Office, the FBI Safe Streets Task Force, and the State Attorney's Office provided our investigators throughout this investigation. I also want to acknowledge the hard work of the men and women of the Deland Police Department Uniform Patrol Division who apprehended Mr. Williams this afternoon. They all have been working nonstop since this occurred to bring this individual to justice and keep our community safe. Anyone that has any information about this shooting is urged to contact the Deland Police Department. You may also use the Deland Crime Watch page, where you can provide tips to us from that portal. We've received many tips, and we are very appreciative, as I stated earlier. I want to just provide some general community safety remarks. If you saw something or heard something or know something, please contact us. Help us bring justice to the Harris family and ensure the safety of our community. I also want to urge individuals in our community, and not just young adults, but any adults, that when emotions are high, you don't have good intentions, put your guns down. Bringing a gun to a fist fight is not a solution, and once that trigger is pulled, it cannot come back. This was a incident that occurred that should not have occurred, but it did. And we are not happy about it here in Deland, but rest assured we will work and continue to work as hard as we can to bring all those that are involved in this incident to justice. And that's all the remarks I have for this afternoon on this incident.
I have a question about that. I believe in the presser this weekend, they spoke about a round that was found in the parking lot from a different gun. Is that another gun you had? Or?
Yeah. So yes, we did recover additional 9mm round in the parking lot. That part of the investigation is still ongoing. As you can see, the entire case is still ongoing, regardless of whether we arrested the perpetrator or not. We still got a lot of things that we got to do to tie up the case. So
we're not going to have too many questions, just about 2 more. Do you expect more arrests?
That's possible. We're gonna work, diligently, and if other persons are at all responsible for this, then they'll be arrested.
Any information on what actually led up to the shooting or how that started?
Yeah. So we're very early on in this investigation, and we're not in a position to talk about that. Nor is it probably good practice for us to. That'll be for a later time if this case goes to trial or anything like that. So we're not going to talk about the details. And again, it's very early in the investigation, and our investigators are still learning things about this.
How did these Myrtle Beach police help out?
They were assisting us in trying to locate Mr. Williams.
Great. Those are all the questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that wraps up a brief news conference from Deland Police announcing the arrest of this man, Avante Trayvon Williams, 24 years old, now charged with second-degree murder in connection with that shooting at McCabe's Bar on Saturday. And Marlisa, we know they said there was about 40 people inside that bar at the time, and they're really asking folks who may know anything more to come forward, because it sounds like there's still some questions in this investigation.
Yeah, it sounds like from that press conference there being held that Deland Police are still looking to tie up some loose ends. So whether that is more people who could have been involved or more guns involved, we don't know, but it sounds like they're asking for anyone with any information who may have been there or heard anything about that shooting that happened over the weekend to come forward and let them know.
All right. Let's go ahead and check in with our second big story of the day here in our top 4 at 4. And that is, we're also continuing to learn more about a shooting in Davenport that injured 3 students from Osceola County.
Yeah, 3 of these students from Osceola High School, they're now recovering following this shooting in Davenport over the weekend, according to school officials. This happened outside of a prom after party that was being held at a condo complex that you see here in this video early Sunday morning. The victims told deputies that they were just sitting in a parked car outside of a local condo community when they heard a group arguing, and then shots rang out. Those teenagers are now dealing with non-life-threatening injuries. There were counseling services made available to all students on Monday, according to the school, for anyone who may need to, kind of process what happened over the weekend, dealing with their friends. This is a very busy season for high schoolers. As we know, a lot of people are going to proms. And Garrett, this seems to be one of the newer things that students are doing when it comes to having these prom after parties. They're renting out different rental facilities, like Airbnb rentals, to kind of party and celebrate ending their high school career. So a very unfortunate situation. I listened into the press conference held by the sheriff there earlier today, and I did hear him say that sadly, while there, were a group of people there for the party, sadly, these 3 victims were in the car, and they were unfortunately in the wrong place at the right time when this happened.
I want to underscore that the 3 juveniles, the 3 teenagers, the 3 high school kids that were shot had no criminal record, were not troublemakers. They were just where they shouldn't have been after midnight.
Tough situation. They also, at that news conference, showed some new video as well, kind of showing the scene and showing what happened when you could hear the loud gunshots that kind of begin to be fired. They said they think they're looking for 3 shooters in this that were shooting at each other. They said it was a shootout in the parking lot, is the way the sheriff described it.
Yes, and I don't know if you happened to see the map that the sheriff laid out during that press conference, but there was quite a bit of distance between where shots were ringing out from, and you could see the flashbang coming off of the muzzle of one of those guns from one of the shooters. So just a very tragic situation. And, like I mentioned, this is the height of your school career up until this point, when you think of high schoolers, and a sad way to end the year for a lot of those students that were there that weekend, this weekend.
And a tough update too, because one of those victims who was sitting inside the car and got hit by some debris in the eye They said he or she, I don't remember the gender of the victim, likely to lose their eyesight. And you're talking about a high school kid. So tough situation there. They are still trying to track down these 3 people, and they said what's making it hard, what the sheriff said, is that many of the people who may know something or who were there are not being cooperative, not helping. No one seems to know anything, and the sheriff says, you've got, if there's going to be accountability in this, then people are going to have to start talking.
I have to speak up. Yeah, very unfortunate.
Story number 3, and we can give you a live look inside the courtroom in Brevard County as jury selection is underway for the trial of a Brevard County teacher.
Oh, Garrett, we've been talking about this for weeks now. A big talker. A lot of people discussing this. Carly Anderson, you may remember, she's the former teacher who's accused of partying with teenagers at the home of her principal in Cocoa Beach. There is her original mugshot. She was initially charged with child neglect, but the state attorney's office dropped the felony charge. Instead, charged her with disorderly conduct and disorderly intoxication. You just saw a video of her interacting with law enforcement who showed up to a call there. Anderson was offered a plea deal, but she in turn rejected it. So this morning, jury selection got underway. Attorneys don't foresee this trial lasting very long at all. It should be theoretically wrapped up within days once the jury is seated. But Esther Bauer is covering this story for us, and we should have a live report from her coming up during the 5 o'clock hour.
Yeah, and this is, you'd mentioned the being a story that we've been following for a while now. Esther's really been on top of it since the very beginning. We should note that the state dropped the disorderly conduct charge this morning, but did add on a resisting an officer charge. So now charged with disorderly intoxication and resisting an officer, the new charges that Carly Anderson is facing. Another live look inside the courtroom as jury selection continues right now. We expect this jury selection to, we say the expectation and also the hope of the court from what we've heard is to have a jury seated by the end of the day today, and then potentially begin with opening statements tomorrow morning after that, and hopefully have things kind of wrapped up by Wednesday. We will bring you this trial live here on Fox Local with starting with opening statements. So something that we've been watching closely and we'll continue to.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Finally today, wrapping up with news out of Orlando, where the state attorney for Orange and Osceola counties, Monique Worrell, held a news conference today and announced an audit and also made some claims against the previous office holder, Andrew Bain. Yeah,
big claims here. I mean, there's been a back and forth going on for the last couple of years between the two. State Attorney Monique Worrell claims that there is a huge budget shortage in the state attorney's office. We're talking upwards of $849,000 of a budget shortage. And she's saying that this shortage is largely because of former State Attorney Andrew Bain misusing funds and overspending. So she announced today that she's commissioning a full and independent audit of the state attorney's office and claims this will be the first of its kind. She says she's foregone a lot of administrative assistant type roles and worked without them to save money. So what happened before she took her position again? We don't know, and we will have to wait and see what comes out of this audit, Garrett.
Yeah, some of what she said, what she outlined today was that there were some people being paid higher salaries than they should have given the work they were doing, and said it wasn't sustainable given the budget. Also said they kind of overpaid employee payouts to the tune of $92,000. She said that was significantly higher, especially since it was such a short period of time, and also talked about some irresponsible spending when it came to overpaying for tablets, ordering about 30 tablets. And she said that people in the office at the time apparently said, you can buy those cheaper on Amazon. And so just a number of kind of different things that she kind of laid out that she says showed a pattern of wasteful and irresponsible spending as well. And so this audit is a step forward to try to also look at the spending now and see if there are any other inefficiencies or wasteful spending going on, because she talked about how funding for a prosecutor's office like this is always a problem.
Yeah.
And so that situation obviously worsened an already existing problem when you're talking about overwhelmed and overworked prosecutors. And here's what she said about the impact of that.
We were faced with severe understaffing in key legal roles, and that has stretched our managers and prosecutors thin. We have prosecutors managing caseloads in excess of 400, which is far beyond reasonable limits. And when you have prosecutors who are overburdened, it results in increase of legal errors, wrongful outcomes, speedy trial deadlines were being missed, and we're risking case dismissals because of that. There is limited time for victim and witness preparation, affecting the strength of cases and the trust from our communities.
We will see where things go from there, but quite a significant shortfall budget deficit that the office is dealing with.
And I'm curious to know what Governor Ron DeSantis has to say in response to this, because we have to remember that Andrew Bain was appointed by the governor a couple of years ago when he suspended then State Attorney Monique Worrell.
Yeah, so obviously a lot of different factors at play here. You bring up some important context there. Marlisa, we appreciate you joining us. That was our top 4 at 4. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Noah Berggren joins me now. And Noah, good afternoon to you. We're talking a Fox 35 alert day now.
Yeah, that's right, Garrett. Now, we're not expecting storms everywhere, first and foremost, tonight, but it's a focused area, localized region down on the Space Coast where there will be some storms this evening, and there is at least a decent probability of a few severe storms. So let's get right to the graphics, and we'll show you the updated thinking here for this Monday evening. Hope you had a great weekend, by the way. I'm sure you noticed a little hotter out there today. So for tonight, in order, from top to bottom, alerts. We've got wind as the main threat. Now, it's still not high. It's a little more than moderate, you see there. So any of these storms on the Space Coast could produce a damaging wind gust or two, and even if they're not severe, 50-mile-an-hour gusts, so we'll watch out for that. Some hail, about a medium chance for some hail from these storms on the Space Coast. That could be up to the size of quarters, possibly even ping-pongs. Now, there is a tornado chance, but I want to emphasize it is low. It is not moderate. It is not high. We will have plenty of days in a year where the tornado threat is high. Today is not one of those. It's on the lower end, but it's certainly not zero. And if a tornado hits your neighborhood, even if it's on the ground for 2 minutes, it's a big deal. So we'll keep an eye on that. It's not something to be uber concerned about. It's something to be aware of, that there is that threat for a tornado or two this evening on the Space Coast through about 8 to 9 o'clock. Flash flood threat is pretty much non-existent because the storms are going to move too fast and we're still in huge drought. So there's not really a chance of that. All right, so we do have a severe thunderstorm watch in effect through 9 o'clock for all of the areas shaded in yellow. And this is going to include from Daytona Beach to Orlando and then down towards South Florida. I'll give this a second to load there for you. So a few damaging wind gusts, tornado or two, and some hail up to the size of quarters. And that severe thunderstorm watch extends from Daytona Beach all the way down towards Miami and the Keys. So here's the radar right now. There's really actually nothing going on for our region right now. There's a few showers west of the metro, oddly enough, from Clearmont towards Ocoee and Winter Garden. But most spots are going to be just looking to the east tonight at those storms. We've got the Thunder Truck with meteorologist TJ Springer going out towards the Space Coast. He'll be tracking some of the storms for us in the evening news tonight. But on the Space Coast, I would say from about Titusville to Mico, 5:30 to 8:30. 6 to 8:30, 5:30 to 8:30, sometime in that window, the radar should light up with some storms from, again, Mims, Rockledge, Titusville to Cocoa Beach, Merritt Island, Satellite Beach, Melbourne. So if you're in those areas, that's where we'll keep an eye out for some severe storms. But for the rest of the area, Garrett, it's probably pretty much okay for tonight. Now, the rest of this week, like we talked about last week, there will be some better rain chances, especially by later this week. So while we're still talking about drought, the drought will probably get worse in some areas before it gets better still. We've got positive news that, like that morning round of rain and thunder, I'm sure gave you a surprise with your morning coffee Sunday, Garrett, like it did me. But that was welcome rain. We've got a lot more of it to come this week. So several chances, not just today. So for the areas that don't get rain or storms tonight, we'll have several more opportunities, especially later this week into the next weekend, for some showers and storms that'll hopefully start putting a dent and will chip away at that drought.
You're right, though, about that about that thunder kind of being startling. You know, even expecting the rain and storm chances, still, it had been so long since we had kind of seen that rain, had heard that thunder like that. It startled me, but I'll tell you, more than anyone, I know it startled my dogs. I think they were like, "What is this noise?" I had forgotten.
You know, it speaks to the pattern we've been in, Garrett, when conversationally we're all going, wow, I forgot what thunder and rain felt like, and we're living in Florida, not, you know, Antarctica.
Yeah.
Because it's going to rain here on a daily basis in the summer, right? And, you know, here we are, like everybody, it was a topic of conversation Sunday everywhere in Florida. It was like, oh my gosh, it rained. It's just been, in some areas it did in the thunderstorm for like 3 months. So certainly, yeah.
But you also bring up a good point. It's going to take some time, even with the daily rain chances this week. It's still going to take some time to kind of claw our way back from the drought conditions that we've been in.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and it's not just one or two spots that's in drought. You know, most of the area is in extreme drought or severe drought. And the areas that are in that extreme drought, it's 10 inches to a foot below average. So, you know, this is very misleading because we might get, let's say, today and then Wednesday and Friday this week, you know, 1 or 2 towns that get 3 inches of rain, but it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's one small town, you know, in a county where the whole county is a foot of rain below average. So while, you know, some areas are going to get a good, healthy couple downpours in their backyard, you know, one downpour is not going to drop a foot of rain across the entire area. So there will be definitely places that get left out this week that still will still have accelerating drought, and others that starts to get a little bit better.
All right, the Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Noah Berggren, we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, sir.
And as Noah mentioned, here's a live look at the Thunder Truck as TJ Springer heads to Brevard County to follow conditions there. You can see darkening skies a little bit, some clouds on the horizon. No precipitation at the moment, though, right now at least. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we will be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon, live on Fox Local, fox35orlando.com, and also on YouTube. And if you are watching on YouTube, go ahead and say hey in the chat there. Ask if you have any questions. Feel free to ask them. We might be able to answer them, and let us know where you're watching from as well. So we appreciate you joining us, however you are watching us on this Monday afternoon. The Florida legislature is going to be heading into overtime as state lawmakers try to agree on a budget. We know there's still billions of dollars apart when it comes to kind of that top line number, and that is really just the latest. There's been a lot of questions about kind of where things go from here with those negotiations. Lawmakers are not in Tallahassee, at least not meeting at the Capitol this week, taking a week off after what has been an at times tense 60-day session that also seemed to be a little less productive than some previous years and typical years. In fact, that's exactly what one reporter found. John Kennedy, Florida Capitol Bureau reporter from the Tallahassee Democrat and the USA Today Network, spoke with him this afternoon on Florida Live, and he broke down some of those numbers for us and also gave us the latest on the budget talks.
I just did some numbers on, the number of bills that were introduced and the number of bills that passed. This year, in the vicinity of about, I believe, about 11% of the bills introduced were passed by both the House and Senate. That compared to an 18% level last year. Every year there are, vastly more bills than there are those that get passed. But this year seemed to be especially kind of dysfunctional, and they didn't get through a lot of the agenda that they had set out to do. A lot of big promises early on about tackling property insurance. That was something that the House Speaker, Daniel Perez from Miami, a Republican, that he wanted to do. That didn't really get off the ground. Some things did get done. A big condo bill that was very important to people in Florida's condo belt, which kind of is Southeast Florida and Central Florida, and then, of course, a lot of the Southwest. They've been struggling with trying to come up with first inspections of taller condo buildings and then money in the Homeowners Association reserve accounts. The legislature, in the end, cut a little bit of slack for some of these homeowners, although they're still kind of being kept to having to do inspections. This all comes out of the Surfside condominium collapse of a few years ago. So there's clearly a need to, from a safety point of view, for these condos to be inspected, but people were squawking about the amount of money that in some cases they had to come up with to do the repairs.
You talked about some of the tension of the session and kind of how things were able to kind of get a little off track. What was it that you think that ultimately kind of unraveled some of that greater agenda?
Yeah, the speaker, Daniel Perez, raised some issues with Governor Ron DeSantis. These went back to January when the governor called the legislature into a special session to enact immigration changes in anticipation then of what was President Trump's promised mass deportations. The legislature wanted to do it their way. They didn't want the governor to dictate what he wanted done. And that resulted in 3 special sessions in January and February. So in the end, they all sort of shook hands and agreed on what was passed back then. But that sort of set the tone that the legislature this year was not going to be sort of the rubber stamp that it has been for at least the last few years for Governor DeSantis. So once again, this year, issues rose where the legislature rejected the governor, which is, part of the system. But when Governor DeSantis had been a presidential candidate in 2023 and just for the very first part of 2024, the legislature was very subservient to DeSantis. And this is kind of a new spirit right now, this Republican revolution that we're seeing. And of course, one of the big issues that became a point of controversy was the House conducting an investigation of funding that went through Hope, Florida, which is a sort of a social services support organization. It's a nonprofit, but it is founded by First Lady Casey DeSantis. And the House's investigation raised some troubling questions about money that came from a Medicaid settlement that was funneled through the Hope Florida Foundation, went to some political committees, and then ultimately was used to help the governor in his campaign last year against the marijuana ballot measure that was before voters in November that narrowly missed. But the governor was evidently was needing support in his clamor against that measure. The governor has insisted there's been no wrongdoing with money going into Hope, Florida, or coming out of Hope, Florida. But the investigation, while paused right now, I think variations of it are going to continue in the House in coming months. So there's a lot of tension in the air, as you pointed out.
And all of this, as we know, the House and the Senate are still trying to come to an agreement on the budget and hash out some of those details. But it sounds like even as they get ready to return next week, that there is still a pretty substantial disagreement on allocations even at this point.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an unknown right now. We haven't gotten too much detail other than on the very last night of the session, about 2 hours before the legislature was set to adjourn at midnight Friday night. They announced that they had what they called the framework of a budget agreement. And, we don't have too many details on what's coming up, but the two budgets, one passed by the House and one passed by the Senate, they were $4.4 billion apart. So that's a lot of dollars to cover, and it also involves a lot of policy issues as well. So the speaker had announced that the budget that they're coming in with, again, it's very broad right now, but it sounds like the Senate has come down a little bit in its spending priorities, and the House has come up a little bit in its spending priorities, which, is the framework of a deal, I guess, where the two sides move a little bit more toward the middle. But we're going to see as budget conferences begin next week, just where the areas of agreement and, still lingering disagreement are.
So yeah, what do we need to watch for when it comes to that extension of the session? It's what, May 12th through June, I believe.
Yeah, it's into June 6th, which is remarkable. That's an inordinate amount of time for them to decide what they have to decide, it seems like. But there may be some strategy involved there where I think the House is possibly anticipating that the governor is going to veto a lot of whatever they decide on in the budget. And they may want to try to do it again. Again, the budget year for the state begins July 1st. So they're under a bit of a deadline right now to try to get it done. But yeah, I mean, some areas that to watch, environmental spending is something that the governor has, made a very much of a signature issue for him through the years. And I think this year the legislature is going to dial back some of that environmental spending. The spirit in Tallahassee right now seems to be that they want to spend less this time around. Part of it is that state economists have warned that in the next 2 years they could be facing budget deficits. So the warning from economists is sort of like start curtailing spending. So I think we were already going to start seeing that. And, there's a little bit of the spirit of, Elon Musk and Doge also filtering down to Tallahassee, since these are, the Republican supermajorities in the legislature who are, holding a lot of allegiance to the Trump White House. So I think there's a whole movement right now, kind of anti-government, anti-spending. So we're seeing a little bit of that right now too. I don't think there's any chance of a across the board state pay raise for the state workers to come through. That's another issue I think that's probably dead on arrival right now. But yeah, there's a million pieces to this budget. So I think generally we're going to see some belt tightening across the board.
And lawmakers will return to Tallahassee on the 12th. I believe that is next Tuesday, if my memory serves. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we will be right back. Actually, I'm doing the math now. I think it's Monday. It's Monday. It's Monday. They'll be back on Monday, the 12th. That makes more sense anyway. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer. Thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon. We are still learning more and trying to learn some new details this afternoon about this shooting in Davenport that happened over the weekend. 3 high school students were injured. 3 gunmen are believed to be involved with this, and the sheriff's office is trying to learn more about who these people might be and to track them down. We talked about this earlier with Marlisa during our top 4 at 4, and she mentioned some of the video that shows what happened. Fox 35 or Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd spoke at a news conference earlier that the Fox 35 covered. We brought to you live here on Fox Local. I want to play for you a little bit of that as the sheriff kind of walks us through the situation and what happened late Saturday night into the early morning hours of Sunday.
Let's start so you can understand. The first video we're going to show you was at the Wawa, and we received a call about 2:14 in the morning. And they said there's a mob outside, there's fights, they're stealing drinks, they've got people blocked in, we can't do our normal business. Well, when we arrived 6 minutes later, we didn't find any fights, but we did see a lot of people who were leaving as we were arriving. And the Wawa manager said, hey, I want the parking lot clear. Just let's clear the parking lot because it is chaos here, and they're just coming in stealing stuff. So let's take a look at that. Do you think that they heard the sirens and so seconds later, the parking lot's virtually empty and everyone's fled. The Wawa manager at that point says, hey, things are under control. We saw no fights. We didn't see any fights on any video. We don't know if there were fights. That's still under investigation. But the 911 call that talked about mobs and fights and stealing drinks and people are blocked in and we can't have our normal business flow of traffic, we saw part of that. But 6 months later, we didn't see any fights. So now the deputies leave. And if you have ever had a chance to do a ride-along on a Saturday night, they go from call to call to call to call to call. So these deputies are now off in another piece of the northeast area in their district answering calls for service. When we start getting calls from the Azur Resort, AZUR Resort, which is really short-term rentals of loud music and a party. Now I want you to understand the Azur Resorts are circled in red here. The Wawa is in blue. People, when we were arriving and the sirens are going off, people are now getting in their cars and they're taking off and running. But they've all left the area. Apparently, some period of time later, 30, 45 minutes later, they started gathering in the short-term rental area. There was at least one, I don't know if it was Airbnb, I don't know if it was VRBO, but there was at least one rental there that several people came and went from. So that call was called in at about 2:45, 2:55. Of course, now it's in the queue to be answered because we're going call to call to call to call. Then at 3:38, we receive an active shooter. And we'll show you a next clip of what we see. And I'm going to try not to talk while they play it, because when they play it, it feeds back.
This is
This. Cell phone video here, and then the next piece it'll feed back on me. Now, if you look real close, we'll play that one more time. If you look real close this time, on the far corner, you can see the muzzle flash of what appears to be a 223 or AR-15. I'll point out the area of the muzzle flash. It's going to be That was the active shooter that we received at 3:38. When we arrived, what we discovered, and I'll go over here and point it out. I don't know if the microphone will pick up. There was a car here, or some people here, shooting up here. You saw the muzzle flash from the AR shooting back here. So here's where the shooting was between two folks, sets of folks. Our victims were in a car behind and had no part of apparently the disturbance at all. They were just sitting in a car. They were all from Osceola High School. They were there at the party, at the event, but there's different pieces of information we've received. There was an argument, there was hollering back and forth, and then the first shots we heard sounded like they came from a smaller handgun, and then you heard the loud reports, and that came from the .223. When we did our follow-up investigation, there were a total of 33 shell casings and 3 firearms. There were .380, 9mm, and a .223. So there were apparently 3 shooting groups that participated. I want to underscore that the 3 juveniles, the 3 teenagers, the 3 high school kids that were shot had no criminal record, were not troublemakers. They were just where they shouldn't have been after midnight.
That was the Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd talking about the situation that led to that shooting. Still many questions unanswered. He said, again, they were trying to get folks to cooperate and get some more information about who may have fired those shots in the parking lot. Going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we will be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
A group is now suing the state of Florida over its new law that is tightening restrictions on ballot initiatives. The group is Florida Decides Healthcare, and they are actually in the middle of trying to get signatures for a potential constitutional amendment to put on the ballot for 2026 that would expand Medicaid. And they are now saying that the state's new law that is tightening restrictions, adding a number of new limits and regulations, and also putting some penalties, they say it is undemocratic and a violation of the First Amendment to make these new steps. And not only that, they say it will effectively shut down operations like theirs for citizen-led ballot initiatives here in the state of Florida. They held a news conference earlier today, a virtual news conference on Zoom, to talk about their concerns with this legislation and now this step to take legal action against it.
The lawsuit filed in federal court argues that this new law is a direct assault on Florida's citizen-led constitutional amendment process, a vital democratic tool that gives everyday Floridians the power to propose ballot initiatives. HB 1205 violates the First Amendment rights to free speech and association, and it undermines the very foundation of participatory democracy in Florida. Let's not mince words. This bill is not about improving the ballot initiative process. It attacks the fundamental freedom of Floridians to participate in their own democracy. It is calculated and cowardly attempt by politicians in Tallahassee to rewrite the rules, not to serve the people, but to protect their own power. This is not reform. This is repression. And we are calling it what it is, a direct assault on the voice of the people. Through the citizen-led amendment process, all Floridians from every race, every background, and income level have come together to pass policies that politicians wouldn't touch, raising the minimum wage, legalizing medical marijuana, protecting our water and land. And this process has empowered communities to create change when the legislature failed to act. But now, those same politicians, afraid of the people's power, are trying to strangle this process with red tape and intimidation. They've slashed the petition return window from 30 days to 10. They've added vague criminal penalties and punishing fines targeting well-intentioned volunteers who dare to lend a hand. They've imposed new bans on who can gather signatures, silencing entire communities of our fellow Floridians based on where they live, where they're from, or mistakes they've made years ago. They've even created a 90-day tolling period to block signature verification, deliberately stalling grassroots momentum. These are not tweaks. These are traps. These new rules are designed to make it nearly impossible for everyday people to have a voice in the laws that shape their lives, and to make sure that only the wealthy and politically connected have the means to get on the ballot. Florida already had the most restrictive ballot amendment process in the nation. This law is a machete taken to a system that needs a scalpel, punishing those who dare to organize, participate, and challenge the status quo. It is a bad faith power grab by politicians who are afraid of their own constituents. But we are not afraid. We are fighting back with this lawsuit. We are challenging this law because we believe in democracy. We believe that when politicians fail to act, the people have the right to step in. And right now, we are fighting to put Medicaid expansion in the hands of Florida voters where it belongs. Over 1.4 million Floridians fall into the Medicaid coverage gap, making too much to qualify for Medicaid and too little to afford private insurance. These are caregivers, essential workers, seniors, veterans, and our neighbors. And they've been left behind for far too long. Medicaid expansion isn't a partisan issue. It's common sense. In fact, a Mason-Dixon poll conducted just last month shows that over 78% of Floridians, including 7 in 10 Republicans, support Medicaid expansion. This overwhelming support cuts across party lines and reflects the collective will and values of Floridians. They know Medicaid expansion is an investment in our health, our economy, and our communities. But instead of letting the people vote, the governor and his allies are throwing up roadblocks because they know when Floridians have a say, progress wins. We will not let them silence us. We will not let them rig the rules. And we will not stop fighting until every Floridian has the freedom to vote on the future they deserve.
I think what's very clear here is that the right to circulate petitions is grounded in our First Amendment rights, and that is backed up by 2 very strong Supreme Court cases: Meyer versus Grant and Buckley versus American Constitutional Law. Both of those cases make it clear that circulation of petitions is core political speech protected by the First Amendment. There are some other cases that further lay out what those what specific provisions that have been struck down, and we believe that many of those provisions are very similar and analogous to the ones that we are challenging here.
So a lot of questions there about that.
You're watching Fox
lawsuit,
35 News Plus, streaming on Fox
You are
Local.
watching Fox 35 News Plus on Fox Local as we wrap up our show this afternoon and get ready to send things out to Studio B for the start of Fox 35 News at 5. You see John and Luann getting ready for the start of that newscast where we will have updates on a number of the stories that we have been tracking today, including the latest with these shooting investigations. Fox 35's Marie Ettinger will have the latest from Deland. More on that breaking news that we brought you earlier in the show. So keep it right here on Fox Local. More news is just seconds away. Have a good afternoon.
Chaos and gunfire after prom.
We found bullet remnants that have hit all of the different apartments. We found bullets